Welcome to the Digital Lifestyle Show. Coming up this week, we've got Jason Fitzpatrick from the Centre for Computing History in Cambridge talking to me about the Computer Museum and how they're getting through these changing times. Gary and Richard are here. We've got to talk about build, and we're going to be talking about new builds of Windows 10, Windows 10X, all sorts of stuff. So let's go to Richard and Gary. Gary and Richard, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. We're back here once again. And we've got a lot to fit in this week. Not only have we got all our regular news, we're also going to have Jason Fitzpatrick from the Centre for Computing History joining us to talk about his museum. And obviously things are a challenging time for museums at the moment. So I wanted to get on the show because you mentioned it last week, Richard, about how it is a challenging time for them and the things they're doing to make sure they stay afloat and keep all this fabulous history for us and for future generations. I think it's the future generations that we need to make sure we preserve it from. So we're going to be talking to Jason anyway about some of this stuff, including the fabulous MicroMen film that he was involved in, as we were just before we started recording reminiscing on what a brilliant film that is and how fun it is and how it just captures that sort of early 80s computer rush, gold rush of computing in Britain.
Yeah.
Brings back fond memories of unboxing my ZX81.
It was good times.
Yeah. So anyway, so we've got Jason coming up later, but we've also got Windows Insider news, we've got new build news, we've got build news. We'll talk about the how things went with build last week and lots more. So where should we start? Let's start with build. A show that was primarily aimed at people like you, Gary, but with it being all virtual, it meant that anyone could attend, and which changed it. But first of all, let's get you as a developer. How did you find it?
It was, for me, really good. There was a lot of very good, actual, real information available on some of the technology. I mean, obviously, because of my being MVP, I get to know a lot about this stuff early on, and I probably knew most of the announcements and knew most of the stuff which is going to be talked about, so probably less relevant there. But I thought there were some really good sessions. There was a lot less marketing sessions than I'm used to at these sort of events. There was actual content. And also, one thing I did like was some of the chat got into some real controversial and reasonable arguments about directions of things were going, and the response was actually genuine from the Microsoft people, and they actually took time to answer the questions, which doesn't always happen at technical tech events. Certainly not in some of the other competitors these days who can totally miss that sort of stuff out. I miss, as Richard said last week, I miss some of the in-person stuff. Some of the corridor chats are some of the best bits of these events, and definitely miss some of that. But in terms of content, I thought it was good. I'm a little bit worried about some of the directions they're going on certain things. I know we talked about the Maui stuff last week. .NET. I've been corrected about that. We can't call it Maui. We have to call it .NET Maui, because apparently someone's got the copyright, a trademark of Maui. So, but yeah, so .NET Maui. But there's also the WinUI stuff we talked about, and after the show last week, we had the second day, and it became clear that there isn't very much convergence going on there, and they're almost going in two separate directions. And you've got the sort of the Windows development team pushing one way and the .NET development team pushing another way, and that's, to me, is a bit unfortunate. I think that there needs to be a bit more coming together there. I mean, there's been interesting discussions on Twitter about that today, which may indicate there's something moving in that direction. But that was my one not so happy about. But the rest of the stuff, there's some really interesting stuff. Unfortunately, you didn't get what you were asking for.
No. Yeah, which is what I was going to say. There was very little talk of Windows or Windows features specifically. It was, I understand it's a developer event, but previous shows have showed a lot of your phone features that would. So we're still getting those features now, but they were first shown at Build last year or the year before even. We've also seen previews of new features coming to Windows at these shows, and there was nothing to do with that. Nothing on Windows 10X. Aside from perhaps the convergence story for the developers. I was surprised that, given all these blog posts we've had about how Windows is the focus for Microsoft with new interest and new focus, there was very little Windows talk. What do you think, Richard?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say my experience wasn't quite as positive as Gary's. I mean, I did come away thinking to myself, there wasn't a lot of Windows stuff, and I mean, they obviously had many more thousands of attendees than they had before, and the sessions I sat in, some were very good. Don't get me wrong, some are very good. I found the WSL stuff very interesting. The .NET 5, .NET 6 stuff also very interesting as well. I'm not quite sure if you mentioned .NET 6, but the .NET 5 core stuff very interesting as well. But I did feel that some of them had been maybe dumbed down slightly. They didn't have quite the same level. But perhaps I'm more used to then grabbing people in corridors and just having a real in-depth deep dive.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think the chats you have after the talks is what you usually get the real in-depth on.
And also when you're just walking, because I mean, if you've ever been to Build, one of the things that I love about Build, or have loved about Build, is the fact that you can go for a walk around the show floor, all the booths are there, and you've got all these names who you associate with Microsoft products, and they're all there. You can talk to them, and they'll generally, some may talk to you, some may see the journalist badge and run a mile, but on the whole, most of very happy to talk, because they're very proud of what they do. And I think I missed that this time around. But I think the big thing I missed, probably like Ian, is I was expecting Windows 10X or something more about that. And looking at the time frame and where we are now, it's now approaching June. I would have hoped it being a dev show, there'd have been a lot more about 10X this show, and there just wasn't. Which I'm concerned.
Yes, I mean, you suspect if it had been ready, it would have been talked about.
That's what I'm worried about. Yeah, that's my concern. Because really, the style of the show, it was almost like a repeat from last year, in that the style was kind of, you had the .NET stuff, 5 to 6. You got the fantastic work happening with the Windows subsystem for Linux, which of course, bearing in mind half of all workloads in Azure are Linux now. So what's happening there is very exciting. It's very exciting. Although there was a slightly odd blog post where they promised that the GPU stuff was going to come in June in an insider build, and they very quickly edited that blog post to make it coming soon, because I think somebody may have revealed a bit more than they intended to about how things work behind the scenes. And of course, you had the Terminal 1 release and Power Toys and things, but I was really looking for, that 10X release, and so it feels to me as though it's obviously not ready yet. So I'm now looking at the calendar, working out which event it's going to be launched at coming up, and I don't see much in the calendar before Ignite, really.
Do you think they're saving all the good Windows 10 things and Windows 10X for a standalone event? Because now they've proven they can host these events from the virtual events, that they could probably put a virtual event together quite quickly.
Well, they've proven they can make some quite awkward events, yeah. So, was that a bit unfair of me? Yes, maybe there are, but again, you have to announce these things. You got to let people, so people can schedule it. Because I mean, the other thing about this build was I found it a real slog, because while they cheerfully said they're going to rerun things and sessions were recorded, it was still a lot squashed into 48 hours. And I know certain other companies are planning events that last for 6 weeks or even 9 weeks, which is ridiculous in the extreme, but it did feel, you were kind of running constantly to try and keep up with all the sessions. And while that may work when you're on the West Coast, when you're, say, in different time zones and they're 8 hours behind, it can get did get very tiring quite quickly.
Yeah, I was shattered by the time Friday came around, because I had sessions on Thursday as well, and I'm still watching sessions. I'm catching up stuff, the on-demand stuff, which is still available. I do agree with something you're saying there, Richard. I think that there's definitely, to my mind, they concentrated a lot on two big things this year, which was the .NET side of things, which is important. I mean, from a developer point of view, that's huge. The move to the .NET 5 centralization,
and C# as well. The C# 9, is it?
C# 9, and all that stuff merging together is absolutely huge. And then also you got the Project Reunion stuff in the Windows developer world, which is again pretty huge, although separate. I'm not quite sure why, but. So I think that was the two big things, but there was also another thread this time around, which I thought was interesting to see, which was the whole citizen developer side of things, Power Apps, and that stuff, which took a lot of the resource up on it. There was awful lot of sessions on that side of things.
There were, and of course, I'd say a good chunk of Satya Nadella's keynote was concerned with that as well. He did bang on about an awful lot.
But from what I'm seeing out there in the market, it's it's huge. I mean, it is taking over the corporate world. It's actually making professional developers' lives a little bit challenging at times. Although they did announce that they did add a lot of features for professional developers into the Power App side of things this time. So the expansibility and being able to add things in which wasn't there perhaps 3-4 months ago. So that was good to see that side of it being talked about, and it certainly was a big element in there, which didn't actually leave a lot of room in, if you, as you say, in 48 hours. Actually, slightly more than 48 hours. It's more like 72. But you got these.
It felt like weeks after it. Really did. I was actually. I thought, wait a minute, I'm in the UK and I'm still jet lagged. How has this happened?
Yeah, same here. So I think it could have been longer. The problem with making it longer is you're tying up an awful lot of Microsoft resources, so key resources for that sort of event, and they've got a lot to deliver. So it's a big challenge to do that. So I can see why they wanted to do it over that time scale. But yeah, you're right. It was a challenge to keep up with all.
Yeah, and they had the mixed reality developer days as well on Thursday, Friday as well. So if you do mixed reality dev, you could really get maxed out on content.
Yeah.
But we'll come back to that one because I did watch some of that as well. But yeah, my overall thoughts were it was. I mean, I didn't watch all the sessions. I watched a few. I watched the keynote. I watched the one on quantum computing, which was pretty interesting. I found some of the ones that were organised from Microsoft UK were actually pretty good around that, especially the quantum computing one I watched. But yeah, I was waiting for the big thing, or at least a mention of it, that if you want, Windows 10X is coming at the end of the year, so here's the development tools that you want to be using or something like that. But they just didn't get a mention at all. But we are hearing sort of rumors that some of the Windows 10X features are being backported into Windows 10. So perhaps that's why that they're maybe we don't even see Windows 10X this year.
I mean, I'm starting to wonder, if I'm honest, having sat through build and thought, guys, it's June, so it's and even if you want to see those 10X features, the earliest they can really reasonably hit in Windows 10 would be next year now, because the 20H2, while we haven't seen what that is yet, I'm expecting we'll get some more information on that fairly soon. That's not going to be a big bang release. That by all indications, unless anyone knows better, is looking like it will be again a jumped up service pack, which is, I think, the right thing to do. But it does mean that if you want any whiz bang 10X features, you're probably going to have to wait until next year, I would have thought, to see it in Windows 10, unless they do manage to launch this lightweight OS. We'll see.
I saw pulled together from a few different sources some of their code names. So we know manganese is 20H2.
Yeah, there's iron.
Iron 21H1.
Yeah.
It's cobalt 21H2, and nickel, which is 22H1. So currently, we're just seeing on the fast ring. We're seeing from the manganese builds. We just recently switched over to that, didn't we? Yeah. Which is, I guess, although it's nothing of this has been announced, but my feeling that what they'll probably do is the fast ring will keep with these manganese builds until 20H1 is released public, which
will probably have happened by the time the show goes out.
Yep, hopefully. And then that means that frees up the slow ring for the manganese builds, which is 20H2, and like you said, that'll be a minor release. And then fast ring will switch to iron, which is 21H1, which is when we start to see potential some new features coming in. But of course, the slight change for previous years is the fast ring is no longer tied to a specific one of those. So they say, but it does seem to be still following that pattern.
Are you suggesting the Windows Insider team has got legendarily bad communication skills here?
It just seems to me to be following this progression quite nicely. I know they're not saying it is, but it does seem to be that's the way it's working out.
I think when they mentioned the fact that they were switching dev branch, I thought okay, so we are on a definite dev branch here clearly. So yeah, but we'll see. We'll
see. But I think perhaps any new Windows 10 features and porting of Windows 10X features we won't see till later on in the year. Certainly till 20H2 is into slowing.
But there was some big build news, though. Some huge build news. They've open sourced the 1983 version of BASIC.
Oh, yeah,
now,
GW
guys.
Basic. I used to play with GW. I used to love the GW Basic.
Now I have to caution rumor here. I didn't write GW Basic, even though it isn't my initials. It was one of the first things I wrote in.
GW Basic shipped with Windows, didn't it, for a long while?
It did,
DOS, and
DOS.
Yeah.
Yes,
DOS. It was
right,
actually pre-Windows, yes.
Yeah, it goes way back. It goes way back before. So what the open source was this was Rich Turner, who of course is a huge noise in the Windows dev circles. I mean, I met him last year when Terminal was when Windows Terminal was open source and appeared, and he's now he's Microsoft having released MS-DOS, the source for MS-DOS 1.25 and 2, he's now managed to trawl out of the archives the GW Basic source code, which is all in assembly. So it's really more of a curiosity to be honest. Although I was quite sad that they only brought out the Intel version of it. And they also didn't open source the translation libraries they used to use to port it from, because obviously back in the day, again, we're going back a long time here, but Microsoft Basic was everywhere, wasn't it? And they used to port it from machine to machine to machine using a set of libraries. And I would actually have been interested, just out of curiosity, to see how that worked.
Yeah, it was the Dragon 32 ran Microsoft Basic, didn't it?
Oh crikey! Now you're going back, yeah.
Yeah, I think
I used to really want a Dragon 32. Yeah, I used to really want the Dragon 32 too. I thought they were great machines, just me and nobody else.
There's a great story, and I can't remember where it is, but the history of Dragon was actually quite an interesting one of twists and turns. That's quite an interesting one. So maybe go on Wikipedia and have a look at the history of Dragon 32. I think it was the first Microsoft Basic computer in the UK, because Sinclair ran Sinclair Basic and BBC had its own one, and the Jupiter Ace had fourth. So anyway, those are machines that you'll find at the Computer Museum, which we'll talk about later.
Absolutely, and they're all there. And you know what? The best thing about that place when it's open again is they're all turned on, and you can just sit down and just have a little play with them, and they're brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I love that place. So
we did get a build last week, a new fast ring build, but I think my hands-on video, which I still do, are getting slightly shorter as I progress through these builds.
I bet it didn't take long, did it?
No, because there wasn't really anything. It was just a couple of fixes in this build last week. So it was 19.631.
That's right. Yeah, I mean basically it just did a couple of changes. I mean, it was Windows Hello. They fixed to work with I think 914 nanometer cameras, and also Windows Sandbox. Those WSB files are now case insensitive. Which that's surprising, because I kind of thought that's how they were. I think I've just been lucky up till now, clearly. So I've never noticed that particular problem. They did, however, that they have released an ARM64 virtual hard disk.
Yes, that was it. Yeah.
Which I think is because they introduced Hyper-V on ARM machines, ARM64 machines, I think a couple of months back.
Yeah.
And so if you're one of those very rare people using a Windows Insider build on an ARM machine, like say a Surface Pro X, you can now get a ready-made VHDX of this Insider build, 1619624, isn't it? It's the previous one that's there. Yeah. So they plan to update the VHDX for later builds going forward. So yeah, and that was really it, wasn't it? I mean, a few very, very minor fixes, and a few not many known issues either. It does feel as though they're kind of sort of treading water until they're good to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we need to see 20H1, the May update, which has got. They've only got a few days to get this May update out, really, haven't they, before it becomes the June update.
Well, yeah, they've updated the product pages on Microsoft.com, so I think it's going to hit. It must hit. I mean, today's the 26th.
Yeah.
I think if it's not here by the 28th, then something really bad must have gone wrong internally, because it's. I mean, let's face it, it's almost the most tested build they've ever done.
Yeah, it's been over a year, isn't it? Well over a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is being announced something new this week is, well, we don't know what it is exactly, but HP, Microsoft, and Valve have got a press announcement out on Thursday. I think it's 9 o'clock US, so what, 5 o'clock UK time, something like that. They're doing a little live event, but it looks like it's going to be the new HP Windows Mixed Reality headset. Although we don't know whether it's Windows Mixed Reality yet, but we're assuming with Microsoft, HP, and Valve, it's going to be that, because all Windows Mixed Reality headsets run Steam pretty well. I've seen some leaks. I don't know whether these are true renders, fakes, or whatever, but the controllers look slightly different with the extra buttons, A, B, X, and Y buttons. And I think the headset's got 4 cameras rather than the 2 on the leaked version. Like I said, by the time we get to next week's show, we'll know for sure. But this would be the first time, if there is 4 cameras, the first time Windows Mixed Reality has actually had a change of spec, because all the ones that are out at the moment are really based off the original Microsoft reference kit from 2017, 2018. So it's the first time there's any changes. I would imagine the 4 cameras just means you've got more 360 tracking, because the cameras are used for the controllers. So as soon as you get the controllers to your peripheral eye level, it does use some technology to kind of work out the direction you were traveling, but it can lose sight of the controllers. So I think this should improve that, if that is the case. Interesting to see how they price these. If they're launching it with Valve and Steam VR, then they are a consumer product. So it would be interesting to see how they handle launching a consumer product, full stop.
Yeah, briefly.
Yeah, I imagine. Well, it's HP that's doing the announcement, so we'll have some more details next week. But I know that I still use my WMR headset. It's good fun, and there's a shortage of headsets out there, so maybe they can fill that gap that the shortage of Oculus has created. We'll be interested to see if there's any changes to the actual Windows side of it. I'd love to see some improvements over that. I'm not quite sure whether we will, but I did watch the Mixed Reality Dev Days last week. Or some of it anyway, because it was on a 2-day kind of thing, a bit like Build, but a lot of it was done in Altspace. And I watched the Alex Kipman keynote in Altspace, and actually that was pretty good. They obviously you've used the Altspace. We used it to do a recording a few weeks ago, and we had one of the stock conference rooms that I just tweaked slightly, but they had a fully customized conference room that they had designed for them, and it was really good. I don't know if you've seen any screenshots of it, but it looked really impressive.
Yeah, really good actually.
They had TV cameras. The cameras are in there. They had there's got the logos up and everything. It looked really good, and it was really interesting. I think they said there was a few thousand people in the room, but because the way that Altspace handles multiple users, it didn't feel crowded. It was like you were social distancing because I think they use some technology to spin up virtual rooms so that you're not got 2,000 people stood in front of you in this VR room. You've got maybe 100 and not so people in there, it looks like. But their technology can scale right up. And I guess, this is a big Microsoft event, so they're going to make sure it works. But it worked really well. And Alex Kipman, always interesting to hear him talk. I mean, he's a very interesting speaker. And but I actually really enjoyed using Altspace because it's the first sort of tech conference thing I've been to. We've done ours from the other side where we've hosted, but it was actually nice to go to somebody else's and to see how they were doing it and to see how people were reacting. They had a nice space out the back as well, where people were going off to talk. And I saw Simon Jackson there, who was on the show a few weeks ago, who was on our live show as well. So we were chatting before it started. So it was a very good experience. And they've got a huge amount of developer stuff coming for this, not just for Microsoft stuff, for the whole platform. They are very they do seem to be embracing some open source standards, open standards, as Microsoft seems to be doing nowadays. So there's a huge amount of stuff coming. There was nothing specifically consumery. It was about the developers, but it was very interesting. And I just really enjoyed going to a conference in that way. Outspace is a great way of delivering tech conferences, and even if you watched it on YouTube, which at one stage I was doing something else, so I put the YouTube version on, and they were cutting from different cameras. So we had Bob, our cameraman, when we did it, but they must have had multiple Bobs, and they could switch between them and pan them. So from watching it on YouTube was like watching a tech conference with a speaker and multiple camera angles. It was a great experience, so I really enjoyed that. So I'll definitely enjoy it at Altspace, and I'm interested to see now what developers do with all this technology. And there was a lot of HoloLens 2 stuff, obviously, and I think they're making HoloLens 2 open. They're making it available to more people now, aren't they?
Silence. Well, obviously vote then.
Yes, they are.
They are, yeah. And I think they do like some like €99 a month kind of deals on it as well if you get to Microsoft Azure subscriptions with it.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of that, did you guys as Build attendees, did you get the discount email from the Microsoft Store, or was that only US? Was that US only? Because I know a few people got a discount email.
Yeah,
I didn't get it.
It was supposed to be US only. I know a few people outside the US did get it because they weren't sure what location they were in, or if they worked for American companies. But no, it was supposed to be US only, which is
that's annoying.
It is annoying, yes.
Sorry, carry on about HoloLens, Ian. I apologize. You can cut all that bit out. It's just
might have been able to afford the HoloLens if you'd had the discount.
Yeah, exactly. You want the discount for the HoloLens.
Absolutely right. It's a good device, HoloLens too, as well.
Yeah, I think they're just making it available to more people or more markets as well, and not just the big developer, the big corporate developers and enterprise developers. I think they're opening it up to a few more. I did see that the other thing is I only saw the tweet, so I don't know the details. That Magic Leap's got a load cash injection.
Has it?
Keep them afloat, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's still stuff going on there, but Altspace, really good, really impressed with that. And of course, that only works it doesn't work with HoloLens. You've got to have a proper VR headset as opposed to the mixed reality headsets. Now, there was a couple of bits. You mentioned the Power Toys. I think we talked about that last week, didn't we? But I got that installed and running. I actually really like the new run tool on Power Toys. Have you tried that?
Yes, I have. Again, I'm going to be a negative Nelly here. Yes, I have. I liked it at first, and then it began to irritate me because, one thing also, it's the shortcut can be annoying. Alt and space, that is also used for other things as well, but you can customize that. The other thing that annoyed me is it doesn't seem to like multi-screen setups much, in that it would pop up on the wrong screen. It's like I'll be using one screen in focus. I'd hit the Power Toys run thing, and it would just appear somewhere else completely. I thought, well, can you not appear on the screen where the currently focused window is? That would be useful. But no, it seemed to be almost completely random. So I think I may have even filed my first GitHub issue about it, but that may also have gone wrong, and I might have filed it in some poor person's unrelated project by mistake. So,
well, if you have filed the issue, I'm sure Clint and Co will be onto it, because they are very quick at picking up on stuff like that.
They are very good, and of course they do churn out the releases very, very quickly as well.
A couple of the bits and pieces before we go over to our interview. Command prompt.
Yeah, it's just Rich Turner. Rich Turner again has basically said that CMD, the old Windows command prompt, stop using it, because they're just going to be maintaining it and fixing bugs, which I think they made pretty clear anyway. But I think now the other tools like PowerShell are now around. It is time, I think, to move on from CMD. So all the days of CMD is just being maintained, I think, for legacy scripts and things, I believe now. And he's been on Twitter today making that really crystal clear to anyone who'll listen.
I can't see me not using it. I mean, I use a Windows terminal on my machine, but certainly if I ever have to help someone out and trying to find out an IP setting or something, the very first you do, go into command prompt and do IP config or whatever. Sometimes it's just a nice, easy, reliable way of talking through somebody if you give them the keystrokes rather than trying to talk them through going through the user interface. So
yes, CMD is quite a short thing to type, isn't it?
Yeah, it'll be around for a while. I did once trying to explain to somebody about this who I couldn't remote onto the machine or something, and I said, "What's your screen say?" And they send me an email saying, it keeps saying I have to see Windows. And I said, why do you see Windows? I don't understand see Windows. What do you mean see Windows? And I was thinking, like, see of Windows, or do you want to look at Windows? Of course, it was the C prompt, C : /Windows. Took me a few hours to figure that out, I think. Right, what else do we have to? Oh, Rich, you had a story about our old friend Stephen Sinofsky from the Windows 8 era.
Oh crikey, yes, this. So he, I mean, he's been banging on about alternative form factors. Obviously, for those who don't know, dear Stephen Sinofsky, he spent about, I think, the best part of 2 decades or more with Microsoft, and he was given the task, I think, of basically fixing Vista. His team were responsible, I think, for Windows 7, which was a great success, which they then pretty much undid with Windows 8, which was less than a success. And then he departed Microsoft shortly thereafter. So he pinged up saying, "Look at my new desktop PC," and it's basically an iPad Pro on a stick. So, I mean, there's a certain level of irony thinking about the guy who gave us the Windows 8, sort of touch-first interface with its split screens and things and split apps, like in the iPad Pro, Mac, the iPad OS way of working, makes a certain level of sense. But it just made me laugh, really. It was just
there is a slight bit of bitterness comes through some of him tweets every now and again. I don't know whether that's me reading on Twitter what I think, but but I think there is a slight anti-Microsoft to his.
Yeah, I mean, it's I did do a throwaway piece on it, and he did ping me and say, "You should read my blogs. Here, look at this." I've always been on about iPads and things and the change of the form factor. Of course, you can see that he truly believed that Windows 8 form factor change was going to be the next great thing, and it was going to change how we operated computers and things. Of course, the problem was that it was then inflicted on a whole range of people who were still quite happily using their desktops and laptops with keyboards and mice, and it didn't really work too well with those. Windows 8 worked amazingly well on a Surface and nowhere else, if I'm honest. So, as you said, I think there is that little bit of, perhaps bitterness is the wrong word, but kind of, well, I think you'll find that I was right.
Yes. I think that's what it is. Yeah.
Which I say, and how many Windows 10 devices are out there now? A billion, is it? 1 billion, I think.
Yeah, I think see that. It's always interesting. He has some interesting blog posts. I must admit, I have read some of them. Finally, quite interesting, especially when he highlights some of his old ones were quite good. But of course, we used to get the legendary ones where he'd have 1 billion words in his blog post trying to explain a very simple point. But they were always quite interesting to read.
Exactly. Having been, Gary, I'm sure, and Ian, you too, having been a developer during the Windows 8 fiasco. I used to always find his blog posts quite difficult at the time then, because you'd feel like you were in an unfolding car crash, because you had Windows 7 and then this thing arrived and you thought, this can't be it. They can't be doing this. This can't. But all the conferences and you said, no, Dev is moving towards this path. Yeah, but this doesn't work for anything apart from a tablet. It's my users are going to go mental when they see this. And and then it got to the release candidate stage. I thought, this is it. This is what's going to come out. And it was, I can just remember just watching this car crash approaching. I thought, this is going to, and sure enough, we all know what happened with Windows 8. But as I say, when one used a Surface back then, say a Surface RT, made perfect sense.
Yeah. I always liked Windows 8 for that sort of device. I didn't roll it out at work for a reason, and that's you just know the user base, and
exactly.
Now with Windows 10, at least you've got that. It's not much of a jarring shock, and it's a bit of later. People are used to devices as well.
Yeah, it's probably the one book I'd like to read, the full history of what happened around that. What happened between then and, because obviously you had Windows 8, you had the Windows Phone thing as well, and they were two different, very separate things as well. And so I'd be fascinated to sort of learn a lot more about, because you see Sinofsky's Medium post about it and other blogs and things. I think it'd be a very interesting book to read of that whole history going up to pretty much, say, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, right. When you think right through from the Longhorn days.
Well, yeah, yes, I've seen someone do a screenshot of all those things. I'm looking forward to when you add in the 10x bit in at the end.
Yeah.
Actually, there was one thing we did. There was one thing we did miss out. Happy birthday, Windows 3.0.
Oh yes.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Was it 30 years?
30 years. 30 years last week. May 22nd. I want to say. I think it's May 22nd. And it was it's a. What's funny is it only pinged up to me because obviously Windows Solitaire is also 30 years old. And I thought, oh, if that must mean that Windows 3.0, and sure enough it was, but it seemed to be given much less prominence than Solitaire. Whereas I think kind of Windows 3.0 was the big thing, wasn't it? It's what really made what really made Windows.
And I must admit, I never really used it that much because I came into it with 3.1. That's the only, that's what I not that's the case for a lot of people, but that's my era started. When I first started with PCs, it was winning Windows 3.1, and of course DOS. If you really want, to get your games working properly, forget all the Windows stuff for gaming.
Exactly. Yeah. Config sys. Here we go. Yeah. It was, but it's I mean, Windows 3.0 is an interesting thing because it is, we kind of forget that back then. It was not a sure thing. You had OS2, you had Gem, the Gem desktop.
Yeah, I did see.
Gem. Yeah, there was so much stuff out there, so there was no guarantee it was going to be as big as it was. But it just felt so much more modern and complete compared to everything else out there at the time. And then, like the same year, you got the multimedia extensions, and then 3.1 happened, and that was it. And it was off. It was just a very interesting time back then. Yeah,
and kind of. That's the kind of thing you can see at the Computer Museum in Cambridge. Kind of almost the end of the story for British consumer computers, in effect, really, isn't it? That's really when the Windows took over from the Amiga as a home computer. You had the Amigas and the Atari STs and everything else at that time, but it kind of the PC kind of and really went to Windows 95 killed that.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, basically, Windows 3.0, 3.1, 95 pretty much did for the likes of Atari and Amigas in terms of being productivity machines. They lingered on as games machines for a bit longer, but then were eventually it was like a scissor attack. You had the games consoles on one side, you had the Microsoft machines on the other side, and really and truly at that point there was no more space in the market for a productivity machine that wasn't either Windows compatible.
Yeah. Well, I think we should be going over to speak to Jason now. So we're going to do that. So before we go over to Jason, Gary, where's the best place to keep up with you and find where you are?
As usual, on Twitter, @Gary with 2 R's, WMA, and all my links to everything else is on there.
Great stuff. And Richard, whereabouts are you?
Mainly at Richard_Speed on Twitter. And I look forward to listening into the interview with Jason.
Right, so let's go over to Jason, and we'll be back same time, same place next week. So we'll see you next week. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. And we're trying to think when we last saw you back at when you came up to Wigan. I don't know, that was a long while ago. Was it 2014 or 15 or something like that? I can't remember now.
Was Wigan the last time?
Yeah, that's the last time I think I saw you. Yeah.
Right.
So.
Okay. That's a long time ago. Yeah, I did.
Now we've got you on. You're from the Centre for Computer History in Cambridge, and like I said, you supported us when we went at our user group, and we saw you many times at the Gadget Show live. But I know that computer museums, especially, or museums, but especially some like yours, are really struggling at the moment because you rely on paying users coming in and corporate events, I guess, and school events and education events for your revenue. And I've sort of followed you on Twitter and I've seen that really it's been a difficult time for you guys. So first of all, you seem okay in yourself anyway, so it's good to see you're healthy and everything else. So, but how are you finding? How's the museum coping with this?
It depends. Well, I don't know how you answer that. It's coping well because we're doing stuff. So we're creating resources for people that have got kids at home and they want to maybe teach a bit of computing. Then we're doing resources for them with videos online and stuff like that. And we're creating sort of information sheets and all sorts of stuff like that. We're doing some more videos about the collection. But none of what we're doing actually generates any money. So, From being active, yeah, we're doing great. From generating revenue, not so good. So it's, it depends on which angle you look at. But we are trying to do stuff online, and we can only really do things by trying to get support from people. And we've had a couple of streamathons and all that sort of stuff that have been brilliant. And the general public have supported us really, really well via Just Giving.
I suppose we should go recap as well for anybody who doesn't know you, and the museum, the centre there. Just explain to what you do there.
Okay, so it's a very hands-on exhibition of computers and video games and the games consoles, anything that's based around computing, and it basically tells the story of the personal computer. So we try to look at the microprocessor onwards and focus generally on that, and look at how computers became personal. And it's really, a case of trying to explain just how personal computers are. We use the term personal computers. I don't know who coined that particular phrase, but whoever it was could never have understood how personal these things were going to become. They are the phones in our pockets now, and we live our lives through them. So it's going back sort of to the mid-70s, a bit before, with some of the machines, to put that story into context. And it's just a journey through technology over that period of time. But it's all very hands-on, and the machines are working. You're encouraged to have a go on these things, which is where we stumble when we come now to working out how we reopen again. We've had some guidance about how that might work, but for a lot of museums where you walk around and look at things and read things, that's fine, that's going to work, create a one-way system. But for us, where it's all hands-on, it's a struggle. So we're trying to work that out at the moment.
Yeah, that was going to actually be the next question, is how can you, as places start to reopen, how do you reopen when you are so hands-on? I mean, what's one of the things that when I came to see you at the Gadget Show Live in EC, or when you came to our events in Wigan, it's the hands-on. That's the brilliant thing about it. You get to play with a BBC Micro or a Spectrum or whatever it is, and that's the fun part.
Yeah, it's difficult. To be honest, we've had a couple of people ask about our fundraising, and saying, well, hang on, if you're furloughing staff, which we are, then what other outgoings? Why does it cost so much to run? And they're not wrong in that. We are furloughing staff, but we have lost about £23,000 a month coming in. That's not to say that we need £23,000 because we have furloughed staff. But what I'm really worried about is when we come to be allowed to be open and the furloughing scheme stops, and we will open, but not that many people are going to visit. I don't think there's going to be a massive rush of people, because people are still worried about, passing COVID-19 around. So, and I understand that. But the bigger problem is the schools are not going to be visiting probably this year. So my biggest worry is not necessarily now. What I'm trying to do is build up to be able to cope with the coming months, because I think they're going to be far harder than the last ones have been. But we've got a plan for how we reopen. You're right. I mean, I set the place up, but I wouldn't visit if I couldn't play with the stuff. So, if it's not ticking my box, I can't expect people to come along and visit and just look at these things. So I think that's it's got to be a part of it. We're thinking we will have gloves available, and people will be asked to put a pair of gloves on to go around and use the machines. There will be some kind of one-way system. There will be distancing. And obviously we have the hand cleaning stuff that was already there anyway. So we've got an idea of how we might go about it. But the trouble is, I think on the first day we open, I wouldn't expect to get many people through the door. And the trouble is, being open and not having many people is worse than being closed. So yeah, I don't know what we're going to do. It's difficult, but I think this is going to be the long haul for us. I think we're going to be one of the last places to be allowed to be opened, because of the number of people involved and the type of hands-on display.
Yeah.
And when we do, I don't think we're going to get the number of visitors that we need to get. So, and the number of schools. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I guess it'd just be a gradual thing of building that back up over time as people get more confident going out and about, and until we return to some kind of normality.
Well, yeah, yes, except, if we don't get enough people through the doors to pay all the staff, bearing in mind the furloughing scheme by that time would have disappeared, I imagine, because places can be open. How do we do that? That's my worry right now. So I think the last few months are going to be easy in comparison, looking back. And it's something that does really worry me. We're just banging a brick wall at the moment, trying to work out how we do it.
I totally understand that. I mean, I run my own business, so I get this whole difficulty of this stuff, and the bills just don't go away, do they? I mean, you still got to pay for the accommodation. You've got all electricity and stuff like that. I mean, you can turn some of that down, but you can't get rid of it completely. And
I mean, electricity is a good point, because the museum, uses electricity like there's no tomorrow. So it's we can't have the whole place on all day and not have anybody visit. We will just be hemorrhaging money.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't want this to disappear. I mean, this is such an important part of our history. We need this stuff. I mean, it's that transition, that personal computing world transition was just so important to where we are now. And people need to be able to see this over time. So,
absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, this is another thing. People know that we have bought the building that we're in. So again, they're well, then how do you need so much money? And the trouble is, we didn't just buy it outright. We had to get a mortgage like anybody else, and these things are still there. We have to pay back, what we owe people, electricity rates, and that sort of thing. They're not going to stop. We've got a bit of a holiday at the moment, but they're not going to go away. So I think the building itself is relatively safe. And the collection is safe because we own the building. It's the staff I'm worried about. We might be able to reopen, we won't have anybody to reopen it with. So yeah, I'm not sure. We will work out a way, but at the moment I can't work that out in terms of how we can all stay doing what we're doing and continue.
And I guess this is where you need the support from the community then, to build up that sort of fund so you're ready. You're ready for that challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the community have already been amazing. I mean, I haven't checked Just Giving today, but we was up at £17,000 the general public had given, which is amazing. However, going forward, if we are to keep everybody, paid and everything else, I'm looking actually now to businesses helping us out. It's the big business in the UK that use computers every day, and then there's the companies that actually have done this stuff, and it's their history that we're preserving. Can they just give us a hand for a few months to get us over this? We've always, whenever I've gone out for sponsorship and things, and talked to businesses, I've always made sure that they understand that we want their money and we'll make the museum better with that money, but we don't need it. So that if you decide next year you don't want to do this, that's fine. And your money won't be wasted. We will still be here because we keep ourselves ticking over. So what we generate with the public visiting and the schools coming along and the events that we do generates enough to keep the core of the organisation going. So then we invite businesses to come along to make it better. And they can then be sure that this place is going to be around for years to come. Now, that's been great to get it off the ground because it gives them a lot of belief in what we're doing and that it's run properly and everything else. But when COVID-19 hit, that really kiboshed the idea because we don't get grants in big numbers. We do look after ourselves, and now we can't. So now we are saying to businesses, look, can you help us over for a few months or whatever? And what we've done is we've created some amazing sponsorship packages that are incredibly generous, giving hundreds and hundreds of tickets away to their staff if they sponsor us. So yeah, if you go on the website, there's a whole page for businesses out there that might be interested, and they'll get a lot from it as well, and recognition at the museum and their logo everywhere. We're giving away a lot at the moment to try and get that sponsorship in.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's well worth it because most of these companies wouldn't exist if it wasn't for those founders, and you're keeping that history alive. And
it's
just so much stuff there.
Yeah, it's not just those businesses that whose history we're preserving. You can pretty much take any business, and what business doesn't centralize its operation around computers? Yes. So, and some of those businesses, I know that there are, some of the big retailers, they just sell clothes or food or whatever, but actually they have fairly heavy duty IT departments looking after the IT infrastructure and writing code that keeps all their just in time ordering systems going and all that sort of stuff. They need programmers and engineers in the future. So they've got a vested interest in helping us teach and educate that way as well. So, at first I think we said, we're looking for Cambridge, Silicon Fen type companies to give us a hand through this, but actually we should be probably asking a lot wider than that, because we can help lots of companies in terms of giving them recognition for them helping us out through this. Like I say, it doesn't need to last forever, just needs to help us through probably the rest of this year, I'd say.
Yeah, and like I said, it's all the stuff in there is amazing. It's worth preserving, but it's the education side, I think, that's probably the most important. Is when you see kids getting on a BBC Micro or something, just making their own basic program for the first time. It's just something you don't get that intimacy with, an immediacy with a PC or an iPad or whatever. Yeah,
no, that's absolutely true. And it's not just the programming side of it. We're looking at doing some videos now about some of the technologies that have been and gone, core memory and things like this, and they're astounding to people that we used to kind of sew memory. Literally, we used to sew wires going through little beads, and it's just amazing to people. So just getting some of these things across and going, this was only the 50s and 60s, or into the 70s to a certain extent, and look at what has changed since then. So there's all sorts of things that you can look at and just go, wow, how things have changed. And then you've got obviously the mobile phone now, which is more powerful than most of the museum's exhibits added together. In your pocket, and we're walking around with these things. It's incredible.
And most of them have got the ARM chip in.
Yes.
That owes most of its roots to Cambridge.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There is so many stories to tell. We want to be doing that. So that's what we're trying to do in the lockdown now. We're trying to get some of these stories out, and we've done some videos. They do start, some of them, with programming, but we're going to be doing some more what we call zip vids, which is just going to be less than 10-minute videos about a specific thing, with a factual, semi-educational slant to it. Well, not semi, educational slant to it. Just the facts about something in 10 minutes. So that's the plan. Well, we've got your YouTube channel.
It's got a vast resource on it, some fabulous stuff on there as well. So I think that's the thing that people need to check that out as well.
It's quite funny, really, because we've been working really hard to get some good content on there, and our YouTube view figures have gone through the roof. And it turns out it was nothing to do with anything we've done. We have a video on there which I think was done in about 2017, which is in an interview with a lady called Bubbles Whiting, and she used the IBM computer, and she did punch cards and things. For some reason, YouTube have just been suggesting that to people left, right, and centre. So the views have gone through the roof. So when we looked at the stats and right, let's have a look and see what our hard work has achieved. And we were made up. We thought, this is great. Which videos are causing the interest? And it wasn't a single one that we've done lately. It's far more viewed than anything else we've got. It's brilliant. But it is a good video. But we've done it years ago.
I think one of the videos that I've seen of yours, which I really did enjoy, was the MicroMen screening.
Yeah. That was fun.
That's a personal favourite of ours on this show, that film, and your version with the real people there watching it. So did this really happen? Well, kind of. That was great. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was. It nearly went right. I think Herman turned up and he was like, "Well, where is everybody?" I said, "No, what we're going to do is we're going to watch the film and you're going to comment on it." Oh, well, why? It's a bit like Gogglebox. What's that? So yeah, it was, and they didn't talk a great deal. So I had to sort of G him up a little bit and say, look, you're kind of missing the point of this. But then, if you're watching a film with somebody, what do? If you want to talk to somebody else while you're all watching a film, you whisper. You whisper to the person next to you. So I had such trouble with the audio because they've got mics on, but they're all whispering to each other. And I was, this wasn't going well. But, we rescued it just about. But yeah, it was good.
It's good fun.
And the idea is just to get a bit of perspective on the film, and it also teased out some of the stories that the film touches upon but doesn't really go deeply into. So the whole Chris Curry punch up thing, that was good to get a bit more fact on that, because I like that bit. Chris is amazing. I really like Chris.
And of course you guys were responsible for a lot of the props in the film.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We done all of the computers that are in it and all of the tech. That was great. That was at the very beginning of the museum becoming a proper museum. So we set up a company and said, right, we hadn't quite become a charity at that point, but I built a website for it, said we're a proper organisation, and then all within what seems like minutes, obviously weeks and months, I don't know, but anyway, it wasn't very long, and then the BBC came along and said, oh, we're making a film, could you help us with it, because it looks like on your website you have a lot of what we need. And I spent, I don't know, good 2 or 3 months working on that, getting everything together and helping with the story, and I don't know, and ended up being in it as well, which is great.
Yeah, you got it's a cameo in that, but I guess part of that having you on board with that means as well that you would say, oh, you don't put that in the shot because that didn't exist for another year, and because you've got that knowledge.
Yeah, I had a lot of that say, but there's two things that really annoy me. Not many people seem to notice or care, but there's two bits in it. There's one shot in the Sinclair building where they've got some electronics on a trolley, I think, or something like that, and it didn't come from me, and I don't know where it come from, and I wasn't anywhere around at the time they shot that, but it's like it's the driver card from a big sort of 19-20 inch VGA type monitor that just wouldn't have been around then, but so that's in that shot, and I thought, well, how did this happen? And then later on, when it's the opposite thing. When they did the shot on the stairs at Acorn, they had everybody lined up the stairs for the photograph. And bearing in mind that I was supposed to be playing David Johnson Davies, I should have been in that shot. And it was in Cambridge. So I've been going to West Drayton and filming there for ages. But they had one thing they do locally to me, and they didn't bother telling me they were doing it. And that picture's been used all over the shop. And I was gutted. Absolutely gutted, but whatever. But otherwise it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I loved every minute of it, and it's a bit, because we was working so hard on it, I never sort of spent much time getting anything else sorted, so I didn't get my hair cut for ages, and at that point it was all down over my eyes and whatever, and they go, well, you've got 70s kind of bowl haircut hair, do you want to, that would do for David Johnson's part, do you want to be in it? Like, yeah. I can't remember exactly what I said, but I jumped at it. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
And is that something that's still ongoing when TV companies are filming, that you provide sort of props for the period?
Yeah, it's so it's split. So at that point, the trouble is the museum is not very good at reacting to that sort of stuff, because we've got sort of day-to-day customers, and the TV film world is a nightmare for doing everything last minute. So we can't really move quick enough. So my company set up a part of it, or my company's basically more about that now, and we now have a warehouse in Haverhill full of other tech that we use to go out and do that sort of stuff, and we do tons of events and all sorts of things now. So what we do with that is mostly it's actually done by the other company, because I've got people waiting ready to get on and do this stuff, and then we give the museum all the credit for it, because it's a weird industry. There's no point in you really advertising. It's very insular, and once you're in, you're kind of the go-to people for that. So I don't see a lot of point in advertising it. So we give that publicity away to the museum. And if the inquiry comes through the museum, then the money goes through the museum as well. So it gets money out of it. But the other company now sort of kind of looks after a lot of that. So if it's more computing and more in the museum's interest, we've got a way of working the money through the museum, but a lot of what we do now is mostly events, which is why that company's struggling as well now, because all London events have shut down. So we're all on furlough too. But yeah, so that's how it works. Otherwise, we'd need probably 2 or 3 people sitting around waiting for that kind of work to come in, which we can't really afford to do. So, yeah.
Well, I'm glad it's got someone in the industry that knows what they're talking about, because there's nothing worse than watching a program and it's supposedly set in the 80s or whatever, and they're using something that's out of period. It always gets on my nerves. And my wife said, "Look at that! That wasn't around till 1992."
Yeah, it's a tricky one because I've done my fair share of those. To be fair, and it's not. I mean, I've known, but you don't have complete control over this stuff sometimes, and you'll get artistic decisions being made. So you go, well, actually, that came out 2 years before this scene is supposed to be, but they're not interested in timing. If it's a documentary, obviously it's important. If it's a historical film, then it's important. But for a lot of stuff, they go, oh, this is set in the early 80s. They don't care if they've got something from 88 in it. They're not. If it looks good, if it looks the part, that's what's important. So I sit there and go, well, you can't have that because that wouldn't have been there. Oh, shut up. But that's fine. And it's like, oh, it's my reputation. So, you've got to sort of just go with the flow. It very much depends on if it's just a drama and a bit of fun, then it doesn't really matter. I haven't seen it at all yet, but we've done something for Fast and Furious. But it's a great big tape drive. Like something, with the two big tape reels that you would see on a sort of 70s machine. And I've got one of those, but none of the rest of the computer with it in the props thing. And that's gone out to the Fast and the Furious. So I have no idea how that's being used. You supply the stuff, but you don't have any say in it. So that'll be interesting. I don't even know which one it's in. So,
I think they filmed up at the McLaren Technology Centre, didn't they, for one of those films? So it could be used.
They film wherever they can. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's well, I nearly said it's surprising the amount of the stuff that is shot in the UK. Well, actually, it's nothing at the minute. But a lot of stuff is done in the UK. I think there's sort of budgets or incentives for companies to use the UK for filming and things like that, which is great. And they'll use any kind of place they can that works.
So, in terms of supporting the museum, then, so what's the calls to action then for our viewers and listeners?
Everybody send us a blank check, and we'll fill it in, and we won't be too greedy. I don't know. I feel bad because we're all in the same boat. We're all sitting there going, actually, we're not quite sure our jobs are at the moment. We're not sure what the future holds and everything. So the public have already been amazing and given us whatever 16, 17 grand via Just Giving, which is amazing. I don't feel I should really ask for anything more than that. However, we do have a Just Giving page. Basically, just go to our website and there's a great big purple banner saying things are tough right now. And in that banner, there's links to the page, Just Giving page. But there's also links and things to our shop. There's things people can buy. We've been developing new products and posters and T-shirts and things. But I think really the call to action, I suppose, if you work for a company that think might be able to help us out to any extent, if it's £500, if it's £15,000, whatever, doesn't matter, anything in between or more, then get our website and our sponsorship page under the nose of the CSR team or the whatever, and see if there's any interest there, because we are giving a lot. So as staff, you could well end up with free tickets to the museum out of it and things. So that's what I think probably is the call to action from my point of view. I think the public have been amazing to us, and I don't want to be more.
I'll include the links, and also for the YouTube, because I think the stuff you got on YouTube is a great resource as well.
Yeah, well, every watch gives us another 0.0006 pence or whatever it is. I don't know.
Yeah.
But again, it's long term. If people subscribe and they keep watching, then it all adds up. So things like that, and there's a lot of interesting stuff on there. So hopefully there's something kind of for everybody. Yeah. But I think it's the businesses. If we can get some sponsorship, we've got a lot to offer the businesses with promotion around the museum, logos up on our screens, and their logos printed on our mugs and carrier bags and stuff. So we can do a lot to promote companies if they can help us out through this next few months.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad you could join us on the show. I know it's something that's all close to our hearts. And funny, we were talking about doing a get together on the TDL show recording, we thought, well, okay, your place would be great. And we were talking about it last year, and it's kind of those things. Oh yeah, we need to do it. And of course, you leave it, and now So we are definitely going to get back. We're going to get down to see you at some point, and we'll record from. Yeah, we'll record from your place.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, whatever you need, we're happy to make that happen for you.
All right, brilliant.
Let's get through this first.
Yeah, great. Well, really, thanks for joining us. It's good to catch up with you, and we'll get you on when you can talk about more stuff that you're doing.
Okay. Yeah, fantastic. Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
All right. Great. Thanks, Jason.
All right. Cheers, Em. Bye-bye.
Thanks to Rich and Gary. We'll be back same time, same place next week. You can email me, ian@thislifestyle.com. I'm @IceDix on Twitter. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.